Hi, I'm Allison Pryor, and today I'm going to show you how to paint these beautiful three poppies in a field. They're so easy and so simple. If you want more tutorials, just subscribe and like, and we're going to get started right now, so come on over. So all you need for this painting are your ultramarine blue, cad yellow, burnt sienna, and white. And you need a bristle brush, it's a chiseled edge. I'm sorry, that's a synthetic brush. Synthetic chiseled edge, and it's about a size 8. And you also now have to mix your paints for your background. So when you mix your paints for your background, you add burnt sienna and yellow, and more white than any of the other two colors, and more yellow than the burnt sienna, because burnt sienna is pretty strong, like a red. And so if you add too much of it, you're going to get just like really brown. So see how you just adding a little bit turns it dark like that. So that's very nice. So you keep your background as light or dark as you want. I will suggest that you wouldn't have it too dark, because you don't want it to interfere too much with flowers, although the flowers are red. So if the flowers were yellow, then you could have your background darker. Now, so you're getting your paints on there, and I noticed when I'm doing this, my paint sort of dries on me. It's harder for me to spread it, so I have to go back and get lots more paint. So what I did to help that, I used my magic white recipe, and I took it and put it in a misting bottle, and I added water to my misting bottle, and I added about a third of the magic white recipe and the rest in water to fill up the bottle. Depends on how big your bottle is too, right? But a third of the way, no matter how big your bottle is, and the rest in water, because you don't want it to stay wet too long. I know you can use a hair dryer, but still, it's that's the recipe that I found good for the misting bottle. Okay, so if you want to use the magic white recipe without water, you can do that too, but you brush it on, then you brush it onto your canvas first. You can do it that way too. Just a couple of different ways. I have the link below and show you how to do all that. So as you can see, look how much better it's just floating right across the canvas, and I don't have to use as much paint because it spreads better and even. So just keep going until you get your whole canvas done, and then we will smooth out all those, if you have any streaks in that, which you probably won't if you're using magic white, but if you're not, if you're just misting with water, you may get streaks in your paints and on your canvas, and I'll show you a way now to get the streaks out. Okay, so I'm just putting on one more little bit on the bottom there. But that's a pretty color, isn't it? I like it. It's a nice color. I think it's a nice color. It really matches the red. It's got a little bit of a reddish tone in it because of the burnt sienna and the yellow. The yellow goes nice with red. It's not the complementary color on the color wheel, but it goes nicely together. The complementary color is green, so with the red poppies, I could have used green, a light green background. That would have been nice also, but I kind of like this background. Now there's my fluffy brush. It's just a makeup brush. You can buy it in a dollar store if you want. They're only a couple of dollars, so you don't need to go out and buy a $60 brush. You can buy this brush and buy several of them. They're easy to clean, very easy to clean. Just wash them with soap and water, and wipe them off in a towel or a paper towel, and they come right back to normal. So get one of those. You also now are going to need your liner brush for our next step, okay? So our next step is putting on an area that it looks kind of grassy in the background. Gives you kind of a grassy look. Okay. So you just start pulling up these lines. So what I did was I made sure that my brush was wet, so I dipped it in water and I didn't tap it off. And what I did with the brush, I put in my paint and rolled it around in my paint, and then as you can see, I'm streaking on those lines, long lines, long as you can get them. But you really need to keep it flowing, and you need to keep your paint wet, and your the magic white will help it smooth, make it go smoothly. But you also need water on your brush because you're using such little paint that you're going to need that extra push with some water. Okay, so just go into your paints, whatever you have there, just tap into them, or roll your brush around in there, and there we go, roll it around, see, and then you just pull up, pull up, pull up. So pull up all those little lines, and you start from the bottom, and then you can go into the middle and start pulling up again. So it's just these little streaks of color in the background, almost like a sort of a grassy field, you know, wherever your imagination takes you. So we're going to be doing that for a little while. You can work with me on that and have some fun, and or you can fast forward until you get to another area. But this is really good to look at because you can see which way I'm doing the strokes. I'm going to the left, to the right, and straight up. So I'm just misting some more magic white on my plate there with my paints, just to help it move more, because pulling on those streaks of paint is sometimes a little tedious. I'm putting on white, and I'm putting on burnt sienna. I'm just going into different, see, I'm going into white there now, and I'm adding a little bit of color to it. So just keep doing that until you get it all filled up. I'm going to keep this in real time so that you can see what I'm doing, because if I fast forward, then you won't see how I'm dipping into my colors if I time lapse. Good. Now let's start our poppies. So we're going to pick up some red, and we're going on the corner of our brush, and some blue, ultramarine blue. And we're going to have a lot on our brush so we can get it to come off. The background is probably, I dried it with a hair dryer, so you can dry the background so that the colors won't mix in with your poppies. And I'm going to start almost in the middle there. And I'm going to take my brush, and on the chiseled edge I'm going to touch and I'm going to pull down. Okay, touch and pull down to get it started, and then touch and pull down. Good. And then reload, and on the chiseled edge, okay, touch and pull down. There we go. Good. And now we will reload and pull over, touch and pull in. It's all on the chiseled edge. Just touch on your chiseled edge and pull in. Okay, good. And then we'll do the other side. Touch on your chiseled edge, I cleaned up that edge there. Okay, so now you're going to touch on your chiseled edge and pull in. Instead of down, pull in. So touch on your chiseled edge and pull in. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yes, when you pull in, then the lines are more narrow. It'll look like a poppy when it's done. Okay, so then you're going to go underneath on the chisel edge and pull in, on the chisel edge and pull in. Okay, so different strokes make different shapes. Okay, so right now we're just trying to shape up our poppy. Just want to get it shaped up and just get those petals on there. Get some kind of petals on there. Get a picture of poppy. Get some pictures of poppies, and I looked at a few pictures of poppies on my phone and from Pixabay, and then that helps me get the shapes. All right. Now we want to make another one, so we start off with on the chiseled edge and bringing in some strokes to make a poppy shape. This one's a little bit different because I want it to be facing to the right instead of just sitting front ways to you. So you want to make them so that they're more interesting, to have them shaped differently. You want them all shaped the same. And you need to have a little space between them. And this one over here is basically something like the one in the middle there. So my hand's in the way, sorry about that. But it's just the touch, same kind of moves. Touch on the chisel edge, pull down. Touch on the chisel edge, pull down for the first two. And then on the sides, touch on the chisel edge and move in. Alright, on those sides. So when you want the thinner ones, you just touch on the side and pull in. Now you got a center there, so just put whatever dark color you want in the center there. It can be black or it can be dark blue. It can be ultramarine blue. There we go. Whatever color you want in the center. And then we will yes, I love the chiseled edge brushes. You can do so much, especially for flowers. So I'm just adding a little more red to my poppy there. So you just go over the same area again, the same flower, the same petal, and that way you don't make a mess of anything. So I just went over the same petals. Yeah, the chisel edge brushes are great for flowers. And go back and straighten things up if you need to. This is a very simple painting. I'm not talking about simple in the way of painting it, but there's not a lot going on. It's only 3 poppies in like a little field or something, you know. The background's very light. And I find sometimes these simple little paintings with not much in them, I find that they're so pretty and so attractive. They probably sell well. And just not a lot going on. It's just flowers sitting there on your canvas, and it's not a lot of them. And it works really well. I mean, you can have a canvas with just one flower on it. I'm using my liner brush here to make those stems. So just use a liner brush, and that's easier to make the stems. You get nice thin stems. Lots of paint on the top of your brush so you can get it to move, a bit of water. If it didn't come out quite as well, just go back over it again with your brush. There we go. It's almost like the end of the stems get buried into the grass, so that's a good thing. That's why it's just sort of hanging out on the bottom there. But you want to come to a thin ending. You don't want it to be a thick ending because then it'll kind of look off. See, they're looking pretty already. I'm going to use this brush here. It's just the a small round brush with a very sharp tip. I have those in my Amazon shop because they are amazing for making leaves. See, even just looking at that there, you can see a leaf is being. You can get them in different sizes, but as long as it's round and it's got that really pointy tip, it comes to a very sharp pointy tip. And then when you lay your brush down, it makes your leaves for you. Touch and pull. Touch and pull in towards the stem. Now I'll show you over on the other one. You can see that I'm making the bigger one. And you can see the leaf better. So you touch the tip of your brush and push and pull in. Okay, so tip of your brush first. Lean back, push, and pull in. My hand's in the way there, but that's all you have to do is touch the tip, sit back, pull in. Touch, sit back, pull in. Or pull down, or pull towards the, depending on how far away you went from your stem. But see how pretty, I mean, that brush does it for you. So if you got the proper brushes, you won't have a problem painting, okay? It's the brushes and the pressure on your hand that count. This, I'm just putting a few little white spots there in the center there for the center of the flower. Bring it to life. Add a little more interest. So like I say, you can look at poppies. I know that some poppies, they may not have any leaves on their stems, but I just put it in for add a little interest to the painting. I wasn't going to put them on, but I said, you know, it's a painting and you can basically do whatever you want. It's your world, as I say, as Bob Ross says. So now I am adding more red to my poppies. I want to make them more red. Red is really hard in acrylics to get a bright red, but if you want a really bright red, don't add white to it, okay? Either paint your poppies white first and put red over it when the paint dries, because if you add white to your red, it's going to turn pink. And if you want pink poppies, that's fine too. But if you want a bright red and you can't get it with the acrylics, do your painting with acrylics, and when you're finished and it's dry, paint the petals with oil paints, because oil paints are more brilliant. Acrylics dry like dark. They dry almost a shade darker, and you have to keep adding different layers of paint. They're pretty good with the light colors, but with the reds, I find red is really hard to get nice and bright. You buy a bright red, but it still fades after it dries. So you can use oil paint to brighten up the reds. In yellows, you can brighten up the yellow by adding white, and it only makes the yellow brighter. So you can add white to certain colors, and it won't change them. It'll just brighten them up. But with red, it'll pink it out, and then you got pink instead of red. And the way you darken your red is just add some blue to get the nice dark, or burnt sienna or burnt umber to darken it. Okay, but to lighten it, you have to do several coats of red, bright reds. Now, that looks pretty nice. It looks pretty already, doesn't it? I'm going to use a sponge. I was going to use a toothpick to put on some white, could be baby's breath in the background, and but that would take forever. So I figured a sponge would help. So if you can find anything around the house that will give you some nice little, you can even, you can splatter it, but if you splatter it, then you're probably going to go over your flowers. So that just adds a little bit of an oomph to it. Just gives it a little extra touch. So whenever you're doing your paintings, always look to see where you can make a little extra, put a little extra effort into your paintings, and you will see a big difference. When you layer your paintings, see a little bit of whites just added to it. And in real life, you're looking at this on a video, but in real life it looks really pretty. So you'll be able to see when you do it yourself. It's like baby breath. You can put more there if you want to, but because the background is so light, it's against that light background, so it's hard to see. So depending on your background, if you had to darken your background too much, you would have lost your petals. So you have to compromise. So you got a dark flower, make sure your background is nice and light. If you got a dark background, make sure your flower, if you're putting it on there, or whatever you're putting on, is nice and light. It could be yellow flower on a dark green background, something like that, right? So that looks really pretty. I'm really happy with it. I just have a few more adjustments I want to do. So what I want to do is I don't want to end up with my petals pink, but I'm going to add a little bit of highlight to those stems, just to so they won't look so flat, because I always talk about 3 values. Some of these only have 2 values, or 3 values, or 4 or 5. The more values the better, okay? But because they're so thin, I could only get really 2 values on it. I got my dark and medium, so it helps. If they had been a thicker stem, then I could have put 3 or 4 values on. And I always talk about 3 values because that's the minimum that you should put on when you're doing your paintings. The minimum of 3 values: dark, medium, and light. And you got your darks, and you have your mediums on top of that, and your light can be your highlights, or a light and then your highlight, right? So that's why I say 3 at least. And you'll see a big difference. I mean, you can see right now